don't want to follow back on social media, though, do you, Julian?
The only person I know who would do that on camera, Dan Bardell. He gets very strong ratings from us, despite the fact that he's got no end product whatsoever. So he needs to work on that, and a season in the Championship might actually help. Sometimes players just need a bit of confidence.
PSG wouldn't make a smart sign like that, Julian.
Unless I was a sporting director, which I'm not.
Unless you were, yeah.
I'm astonished at how quickly he's developed. Sensational.
I agree.
There's just no weakness to his game now.
I really wanted to get him in my fantasy football team, and I'd bottled putting him in for Salah. And then one of my mates in my league triple captained him.
Yeah, I had the same. 90 points. 90 points.
Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with Bet Victor. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by WhoScored's very own Martin Lawrence, and he's back again. Julian Laurens is here. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, you're loving it, aren't you? On all the time.
Yeah.
Regular.
Apparently, the numbers are going massively up when I'm on, so it's no surprise you keep booking me.
I've heard the same. You enjoying doing the podcast, Julian?
I love it. It's great. I think the content is wonderful. I can tell you that Premier League players even watched us. So it's
I know. Do you think I'm doing a good job as host, Julian, as well?
Very good.
Look at that.
Very good. Very good.
This is what he was like with Jonathan when he started as well.
No.
This is exactly what he was like. Oh, Jonathan,
there's a negative coming. You don't want to follow back on social media, though, do you, Julian?
All right. Are you even on social media? I didn't know. I'm going to look now.
I've been tagging you in things. No likes, no retweets, no follow back. I felt like we were getting on really well. He doesn't want to know on social media.
The only person I know who would do that on camera, Dan Bardell.
I will do that as soon as we finish this show.
I look forward to it. I look forward to the notification popping through. Martin, we're going to start with a team of midweek. Please let us know what it is.
Yeah, so we touched on him last time actually, and you mentioned that he was in good form, and the goalkeeper in the team is Hugo Lloris. Obviously, probably not as busy as he would have expected to be under the circumstances last night, but he did make 4 saves. Kept a clean sheet. It was 14th clean sheet of the season, which is quite significant. His record for a Premier League season is 15, which he's done twice. They've obviously got 2 games left against Burnley and Norwich as well. So he's got a decent chance to break his own sort of Premier League clean sheet record. The right back is Reece James, who got his 7th assist of the season against Leeds, also completed 5 dribbles, 95% of his passes. We'll probably touch on him a little bit later in the show. Joel Matip is one of the centre-backs. Actually thought he had a bit of a tough time against Ollie Watkins, who tends to perform against Liverpool. But he obviously got his goal and did his customary dribble out from the back and set up a decent chance. He's probably the best centre-back in the league at that. The other centre-back is Trevor Chalobah, who came back into the team maybe about time, given Chelsea's centre-back situation. It has been quite curious that Tuchel hasn't played him more in recent weeks, given that all the centre-backs are leaving. He completed all 4 of his tackles in that win over Leeds. The left back is James Justin, just a solid all-round game for him against Norwich. 2 tackles, 2 key passes, 2 dribbles. The right winger again for the second week running is Raheem Sterling. He got a goal and assist in the win over Wolves. So too did Mason Mount, who takes a place in midfield. He's now one of only 3 players this season with double figures for goals and assists, alongside Salah and Jarrod Bowen. He's had a direct hand in 21 goals this season, which is up from 11 last season. It's quite a massive leap from him. Perhaps no surprise, he's joined by Kevin De Bruyne in midfield. Pathetic 4 goals in midweek for him. Earned himself a perfect 10 rating from WhoScored. He's now got 15 goals this season, which is more than twice as many assists as he's got. Touch on him later and his role this season, how that might change next season with Haaland arriving. The left midfielder is Harvey Barnes, who got both assists for Jamie Vardy's brace, who also takes a spot in the team. It was his first start in over 2 months, scored twice, had 7 shots. Quite a lot going on in his home life, so to put in a performance like that, pretty decent. And then he's joined up front by Harry Kane, who just took away Romelu Lukaku's chance at 2 back-to-back team of the weeks. Kane, obviously with a brace, had 9 shots, which is more than Arsenal had in total. With their 10 men, they had 8.
On the subject of Wagatha Christie, absolutely loving the fact that proper sports journalists are having to go to the trial and cover it. Really enjoying seeing some of the tweets from that career highlight for some of them, I'm sure. Let's look ahead to the weekend's games, and then we're going to start with Tottenham against Burnley. And Martin, you want to talk wing backs, don't you?
I do. We talked about Emerson Royale a fair amount on the show.
Podcast favourite up there with Billy Gilmore.
Even in recent weeks. He's taken over Billy Gilmore, hasn't he, really? Yeah. He's been lost. A friend of the show, Billy Gilmore, who's been gone by the wayside. But yeah, Emerson Royale and probably Ryan Sessegnon are their two sort of first choice, like by default, with Matt Doherty being out. He had obviously picked up in form, but I still think Conte will probably be looking at wing backs on both sides this summer. There's a decent chance Reguilon could return to Spain. He hasn't really hit the heights that many expected. Has had injury problems, but yeah, we thought we'd try and look at a few wing backs that could take Tottenham's fancy. And my starting point is always going to be our Who Scored ratings. So I looked at the top rated wing backs this season from performances at wing back alone. And it turned out to be a pretty good starting point because I could just finish there. There are some decent names on this list. Top of the list is Reece James, who obviously they have no chance. Second on the list is David Raum of Hoffenheim, who's just got his first cap for Germany, left wing back. 3 goals and 11 assists this season. They do produce some left wing backs, Germany, who tend to be pretty productive. He's actually sort of looking to overtake Robin Gosens in that spot for the national team. He's only 24. I believe he's out of contract next summer as well. So there'll be a lot of interest in him. Wouldn't be surprised if Bayern are sniffing around, or Dortmund. The third, I think you'll like this one, Julian, is Jonathan Klaus of Lens. Yeah. Obviously on the right side this time. He's got 10 assists, 4 goals. Really, really interesting story. Obviously, just been called up for France in the last national team camp. He's 29, I believe. He's never cost a penny in his career. Never cost a penny. He's been free transferred the entire way through. Just got in the France team at 29. Could be a really viable option. A really interesting option. Fourth is a guy called Christian Trimmel, who's about 38, so probably not. So Philip Kostic is there. Could be a really interesting option. He's out of contract next summer as well, I believe. Heavily linked with Inter, though. So obviously Conte's old club. He's created the most chances in the Bundesliga this season from left wing back. Raum, coincidentally, third. Another really interesting name, Ivan Perisic, out of contract this summer, has just hit an incredible vein of form. Match winner in the Coppa Italia final. He's 33, but on a free transfer, having played under Conte before, could be of interest. Marcus Alonso is 7th, another player who could be of interest. Played almost every game in Conte's 2 years at Chelsea. Has had a bit of a falling out with Tuchel recently. Another player who's out of contract next summer. I actually extended the search to the Championship because I was hoping this player would appear. Jed Spence, who I think will be highly sought after this summer. He's 8th. Obviously played really well against Premier League opposition already this season. Got our man of the match award against Arsenal in the FA Cup. Scored against Leicester in the following round. And then we have another Frenchman for Julian, Ryan Ait-Nouri, who I think's had a really sort of underrated season at Wolves. Really good prospect. And number 10 is Denzel Dumfries, who also I think could be an option from Inter because he's not really settled in that well there. And obviously the connections there. So I was really happy with that top 10. I could just finish there. I don't know what Julian's got to say, if he's got any alternatives, but yeah.
No, I mean, on my list, I had Kostic and Perisic especially because of the links with Conte before and because he's in great form and his future is not really sorted out at Inter, who bought Gosens to replace Perisic, really. But in the kind of form that he's on now, maybe if you're Inter, you try to keep him somehow. I thought about Serginho Dest for the right-hand side, considering that Barca have to sell and he hasn't really settled there too. He can play in the back four or as a wing-back. I think wing-back is probably the best option for him anyway because defensively it's a bit dodgy at times. I would love to see Klose giving this kind of opportunity. I don't know if they would go for someone like him who has never played in Europe, for example, before. Is very, very low in experience at the international level. Because he's only played with France a few minutes. But yeah, I think there's a few options for them to go for. It'd be very interesting to see how who they sign and how hard they try to get maybe the biggest names on the list that you mentioned.
Also, I think Sessegnon's doing a good job at left wing back, really coming into his own. I think a bit opposite to Emerson Royal. I think he's doing really well there. He feels like a kind of player that Conte will get the best out of. And in recent weeks, he's been a real threat going forward. But I couldn't really think of anyone off the top of my head. But I tell you who I realised would be perfect for Spurs, but there's no chance of it happening because he's just signed a new contract and he's Villa's Player of the Year. I think Matty Cash would be good in the Spurs side, but thankfully, I don't think that's going to happen at all because, as I say, signed a new contract at Villa and won Player of the Year at the awards last night.
Don't think Tottenham fans are big fans of Matty Cash at the moment either after that challenge on Matt Doherty. But Tarek Lamptey is probably one who has been mentioned a fair amount with Tottenham, so that could be an interesting one. To be honest, they'd happily take both of Brighton's wing backs. Cucurella has had a great season as well. But yeah, Lamptey's one who's been linked, so it'd be interesting to see if they go for him.
Livramento was the other one, if he hadn't got injured, that I thought they might have taken a look at from Southampton.
Ironically, they'd probably take Kyle Walker-Peters back as well.
Yeah. There's so many right wing backs. There's so many right wing backs. Just an outrageous amount of talent at right wing back, especially in the Premier League, and especially English ones as well. Let's talk about Burnley a little bit then. Julian, who's going to leave if they do go down? I mean, they could feasibly now lose both games and still stay up because of the Leeds goal difference issue. Yeah. But, Tarkowski got injured at the weekend. He's going to go. I think it's been pretty obvious that he's going to go for a while. But Dwight McNeil's come into form a little bit over the last few weeks, and he'd probably have some suitors as well. Yeah,
you're right. Since Mike Jackson came in, they certainly play more attacking football. All the numbers are up, from expected goals to chances created to shots, all of that. So clearly that means it's better for attacking players to express themselves. So I think McNeil certainly is reminding everyone how good he is and how good he can be in a team that actually think about playing football, which was not so much the case under Daesh. I think Maxwell Cornet, who had a bit of a dip of form and a few injuries, but showed at time that he's already adapted to the Premier League. So if you need someone, a player of his profile, I think he could be good. Nick Pope, still one of the best keepers in the league, and I think if they go down, you would not see him in the Championship, especially with the World Cup coming up.
Where do you think he'd go, Julian? Because I was thinking about this, and Sam Johnston is an England goalkeeper. He's going to be leaving West Brom, and I can't really see anywhere obvious where he goes. That's the only problem with goalkeepers. I guess he could quite easily get stuck at Burnley because it takes one to move from somewhere else to get one in, I guess.
Yeah, unless you're a club maybe like Crystal Palace and Gaeta, and you want something a bit different. But
Southampton,
yeah.
But because there's not many clubs. A club like West Ham, for example, I think will probably stick with Fabianski and maybe sign Areola permanently. There's Fulham going up. They could either go back to Areola, who did well for them, or maybe go for someone like Pope. So, but it will depend a lot on what kind of clubs obviously are looking and could come for him.
Martin, do you think Burnley will stay up?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does look that way now. I think Leeds are in big trouble, especially the suspensions that they've now got. Not that I think Dan James is a massive loss, but Ayling is. They're in real trouble. And just defensively, they just look like they've sort of reverted to type recently. Obviously played tough opposition and had players sent off in recent games, but it's a tough one now. I feel like they needed something from that Chelsea game, and obviously completely up against it from the get-go, really. So I think Burnley have got a very good chance of staying up. They've got, but if they're one of those teams that if they do go down, I don't mean this as an insult, but they're almost bad enough that they keep all their players and they have that consistency in the Championship that often allows teams to yo-yo between the divisions. Obviously, you've seen that with Norwich.
Yeah.
And Burnley are certainly one of those clubs. They keep hold of most of their players. I think Julian's right with the players that he highlighted. Tarkowski and Pope, I think, would be the two main ones. Weghorst and Cornet, maybe. And McNeil, obviously, who I think would maybe actually benefit from a season in the Championship just to get his numbers up. More than anything, he's a very good player. Like, he gets very strong ratings from us, despite the fact that he's got no end product whatsoever. I don't think he's scored. He's got 1 assist this season, so he needs to work on that. And a season in the Championship might actually help. Sort of, sometimes players just need a bit of confidence. But you're right. He's picked up his form a lot, but he really needs to work on that end product.
Let's have some score predictions for this one then, Julian. What are you going for?
I wrote 2-1 for Spurs. I'm not actually sure Burnley can score. And then part of me thinks that maybe Burnley can make it really difficult for Spurs and giving them a lot of the ball and just close space, not give much to Son, not give much to Kane. I still think Spurs, with the momentum of the draw against Liverpool, the win against Arsenal, especially in their own stadium, would be too good. So from 2-1, I changed to 2-0.
I had that thing in my back of my head where it felt like Spurs had some momentum recently, and then they lost 1-0 at home to Brighton. So that's playing heavy in my mind. But I've gone for 2-1 to Tottenham as well. Martin?
Yeah, we've gone 2-0 as well to Tottenham.
To Spurs. Now, Martin, when you're not searching obscure wing-backs on the internet, you like to do your little mini award segment. And this week you want to talk about the young player of the season, 21 or under in the Premier League.
Yeah, so we looked at, obviously the award for young player of the season goes to players aged 23 or under at the start of the season. So can easily go to a 24-year-old, which is absolutely ridiculous. So we changed the rules. 21 and under. We kept it to at the start of the season. So they can be 22 now from the players that we were looking at. Pretty solid top 10. I think we've got in at 10 is Tyrick Mitchell. He's actually joint with Luke Thomas, his rating, but just gets in because he's played more games. 9, Emil Smith-Rowe. 8, Jacob Ramsey. I'd have liked him to be a bit higher, but to be in the top 10 is a real achievement for him in what is his sort of breakthrough season at Villa. Martinelli is 7. That man, 8 Nouri, who we mentioned earlier, is 6. And Dwight McNeil, which is why I put this segment here, is actually 5th, despite the fact that he's that end product issue, which really does highlight that he's got the talent there, but he just needs to add those numbers. And then the top 4, I think, is pretty clear. It's just a case of what order you put them in. So we've got Bukayo Saka in 4, Conor Gallagher in 3, who would have been higher but has tailed off, but is still just a really great player to watch, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens with him over the summer. And then the top 2, I think it's really tight. I would probably have it the other way around based on my opinion, but obviously I'm not allowed an opinion.
You're the numbers
on the
guy.
stats man. So we have Reece James in 2nd and Phil Foden in 1st.
Julian, who are you going to give it to, not based on stats at all?
So I love those awards. I have to say, not many people like Ballon d'Or. So I love that kind of stuff. But the young player can't be someone who's already played 100 games in the Premier League or something like that. So,
interesting.
Yeah, my pick, and I'm not saying that because of you two, although I want to come back on the show.
Here we go.
Is Jacob Ramsey.
Here we go.
Oh, love it, Julian.
I take out all the Reece Jameses and Bukayo Sakas who they can't win the Young Player of the Year because they almost could win the normal player of the year, and they've been in so long that despite the age, it doesn't really count. So for someone who's had a breakthrough season, that's what I looked at. There were other contenders like Mikel Olise, for example, at Palace and that kind of stuff, but Ramsey has been by far the best. So impressed with him, especially under Jarrod. In basically everything that he does, he can do everything, and those midfielders are very much the modern midfielders, and I think they're a very rare breed right now. But when you are so good on the ball, also so strong physically, that can run forever with a high football IQ, I think you've got it all, and I see an amazing future for him at Villa or very soon at PSG, and clubs.
PSG wouldn't make a smart signing like that, Julian. It wouldn't happen.
Unless I was a sporting director, which I'm not.
Unless you were, yeah. I mean, I was going to go for Saka, but Julian, I'm quite happy to bow down to your superior knowledge and go with Jacob.
Yeah, so am I. We'll give it to Ramsey. We'll change
6 goals.
Yes.
I think the best thing about Ramsey this season is probably at the start of the season would have been completely unexpected, Martin.
Yeah. And like you say, his composure as well, and Julian's right to point out his intelligence. The goals that he's scored have all been great goals, like ice in his veins in front of goal.
Right foot, left foot as well.
Yeah,
a bit like De Bruyne. His weak foot's actually really strong.
Yeah, that drive that he's got with the ball to run past players under pressure. Yeah, he's a really exciting player. Sounds a bit sort of counterintuitive, but I do think he maybe should have been rotated in and out a little bit more personally. Obviously has played really, really well for much of the time, but has looked a bit tired in certain games that maybe could have been rotated in and out. But certainly is one for to build the future around at Villa. He's just got the application that you can tell, and Jarrod absolutely loves him. And who are you going to trust on a young midfielder in the Premier League? So yeah.
The way he carries the ball as well, the way he runs
Yeah.
with the ball, close control, he's absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, exciting. He's gonna get better as well. So next season you'd expect to see even more from Jacob Ramsey. So yeah, well done to him. He gets the award. Nice to see a Villa player get the award, isn't it, Martin?
It's very nice.
Martin, talk us through the young team of the season, then, please.
Yeah, so we've obviously touched on a lot of them in the top 10. The goalkeeper is actually by default Ian Millier of Leeds. If you did extend it to maybe 23 and under at the start of the season, which I think is probably fair for a goalkeeper, then it would be Ramsdale. But yeah, Millier in goal. Reece James, the right back, obviously. The two centre backs, also Chelsea products, Mark Gurhey at Palace and Trevor Chalobah, who we've talked about. Interesting to see how much time he gets next season. Ait Nouri is the left back, as we mentioned. The midfield duo is Gallagher and Ramsey, which I love. And then the three behind Phil Foden is Saka, Smith Rowe, and McNeil.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Martin. Next up for us is the Paolo one-chop derby. It's West Ham against Manchester City. Julian, if West Ham finish 7th, is that enough to keep hold of their best players? I mean, there's teams like Newcastle and Villa who are looking to push on next season. It feels like a little bit of a wasted opportunity for West Ham this season, because I feel like they should have probably finished higher, but they got distracted by the Europa League, which is fair enough. But at one point, it felt like nobody wanted to get top 4. So it feels like to not get top 6 even.
Yeah.
I'd be a little bit disappointed in a weird way if I was a West Ham fan.
You're right, and especially without the European Cup final that they were clearly aiming for too.
Yeah.
So it's not even if they could have we just narrowly missed it again in the Premier League, because last season they were also very close to top 4, and still had a very good finish. But at least if they had a final, it would be like, but we have the final to look forward to and to playing. They don't have that. So it's still a very, very good season considering the very small squad that they had. I still cannot believe they didn't strengthen in January. But despite that, it's still a very, very good season. I think they could have finished 4th, 5th, 1st. I think Declan Rice was always going to leave anyway. I mean, he has to leave. He might end up staying because of the money they're asking for him, everything. But he's far too good for them now, and he needs a top club. For the rest, I think even 7, you can keep Bowen for another at least 6 months, because I think compared to Rice, he probably still needs another great season like the one that he's doing now to validate in a way the new status that he has, and then he can go to a top club, because I think he's good enough. But maybe we just need to see a little bit more of that. And then I guess the core of that team, Souček, Antonio, even players like Fornals, defender Zuma, I think all of that will stay. Fabianski probably as well. So it's really Rice's future and then Bowen's future that I think is slightly different wherever they finish, really.
If they could keep Rice, Martin, perhaps get Lingard back on a free, and I really think they need to sign a striker, I would say they would still have a decent chance of progressing next season.
Yeah, I feel their form.
A lot of ifs there.
But their form this season, and you're right, it has sort of coincided with the European push. But their form this season, sort of in the last stretching back a few months now, 3 or 4 months, hasn't been great. It's been more sort of mid-table form. So I do feel like maybe there's signs of regression a little bit. I think Julian's right in terms of the size of the squad. There was always going to be a ceiling for this team, and like you say, I think this was the season where nobody really wanted that 4th spot. This was the season for them to go for it, because there are teams that are coming up and are going to spend bigger than West Ham will in the summer. So it all revolves around Declan Rice, though, doesn't it? Like, we can't pretend otherwise. I'm astonished at how quickly he's developed this season in particular. I think he's been sensational.
I agree.
There's just no weakness to his game now. Like, even driving with the ball, he just reads it so well, and he's still so young. So he's destined for the top, and it should really be now. But Julian's right. They may well price him out of a move, but if they finish 7th, do they really have the power to do that? I'm not sure. If they finish in the Europa League, which they still can do, let's not sort of write them off catching Manchester United, because I think I'd almost suggest Norwich could catch Man United if they had enough games at the moment. But if they finish 7th, I think it's a big ask, and that is a complete game changer for them for years, I think.
I mean, talking of excellent midfielders, that Kevin De Bruyne is not bad, Julian. Decent player there, I think. I think he might have a future in the game as well.
Yeah.
If awards were voted for at the end of the season, as I think most of us think that they should be, would he now have got to the level where he would be voted as player of the season?
It's a really good debate. I remember when Salah won the Football Writers one, and with Marcotti on our ESPN show, Marcotti was like, well, like what we're saying, we should wait, and I said, like, what you expect De Bruyne to score 4 goals now every single game until the end of the season to like, and then beam, he goes and does it. So I'm like, yeah, fair enough. There's a case for KDB now, especially if City win the Premier League, which looks more and more likely, to be honest. And especially if he keeps that form for now and even the next 2 games, even if it's just half of the performance that he had against Wolves, if it's just the 1 goal or the 2 goals or the couple of assists, it will still finish so strongly that you think that was a really close one.
I really wanted to get him in my fantasy football team, and I'd bottled putting him in for Salah. And then one of my mates in my league triple captained him.
Yeah, I had the same. 90 points. 90 points. You wouldn't get this with Jonathan on the show.
No, we're not allowed to talk about fantasy football normally.
That's a shame because
I captained him, so I was laughing.
I bow down to you. I wanted him in. I bottled it. I'd get Salah fair of taking Salah out and him doing something ridiculous, but obviously he didn't do anything.
I knew he wouldn't start against Villa. I knew he wouldn't start the Villa game. Yeah, I was sort of playing mind games with my mates in my league, just saying they've all got him captain. He's not going to start. He's not going to start. And then told you so. It was a nice moment for me. But yeah, on De Bruyne, he is now top of our player ratings this season. I think he's for the first time since September that Mo Salah has lost his place at the top of the pile. And on Salah, like you say, if you leave it that little bit longer, he's now failed to score in 15 of his last 17 games for Liverpool, which is remarkable. He's only scored in 2 of his last 17 games. De Bruyne's form over the same time, obviously, has been outstanding. So the top 5 for us, I think it's spot on personally, but I'm slightly biased. João Cancelo is 5th. Son is up to 4th. Trent is 3rd. Salah 2nd, and De Bruyne 1st. I think that's, whether you agree with that order, I think as a top 5, I think I'm happy with that.
Kane is not there because the start was so difficult. Yeah. Other players have had injuries, and I think those 5 have been the outstanding 5 best players in the league.
I mean, KDB could have easily had 2 hat-tricks on Wednesday night. Quite comfortably had 2 hat-tricks. I mean, absolutely unheard of. What a phenomenal player. So unique. Just such a good player, De Bruyne. Love watching him. Let's have our predictions then for this one. I'll go first so it doesn't look like I'm cheating. I'm going to go West Ham. I'm going to go West Ham 1, Manchester City 2. Martin?
Exactly the same, unfortunately.
Okay. Julian?
So I'm going to the game and I have to be there at 9 a.m. despite the 2 o'clock kickoff because we have to do some filming and it has to be at that time. And I'm like, really? So I hope I hope I'm going for a good game because I'm going to be waiting 6 hours before kickoff, which I'm not too pleased about. I say 3-1 to City.
3-1 to City. I'm sure you'll find a goalkeeper to talk to before. You love talking to goalkeepers. There'll be a goalkeeper for you to talk to.
To tweet you and follow all the tweets
get all that.
You've written for the last year or 2, so
get all that business done. I'll have some high quality tweets in there, Julian. Don't you worry about that. Let's we've got Sunday 2 p.m. treble, haven't we, Martin?
We do, yeah. So this is So there's 5 games at 2 p.m. this Sunday. Obviously, the weekend sort of pushed back with the FA Cup final on Saturday. But the 3 games that we've looked at, and we've looked at the same market for every game again. So it's each of these teams to score 2 or more goals. So we've got Villa to score 2+ against Palace. They've done that in their last 4 meetings against Palace. They're at home in that game. Brighton to score 2+ against Leeds. They've actually scored as many goals in their last 6 league games as the previous 14. They've got 12, obviously in really, really good form. Leeds, not so much. They've now conceded 3 or more goals in over a third of their games this season, Leeds. So they do tend to go to pot when they concede. and Leicester to score 2 or more against Watford. Watford have conceded more goals at home than any team in the league at an average of 2.3 per game. So that is Villa, Brighton and Leicester all to score 2+ goals against Palace, Leeds and Watford respectively, and that has been boosted to an industry best price of 9-1 by BetVictor. So.
Have we had any success recently, Martin?
Well, we came very close last night. It's a good talking point, actually, where we discussed the bookings. Romero's going to get carded. Obviously, you said Xhaka is going to get carded. We play a little game called Bookings Bingo sometimes, Julian, where we pick out 3 players to be carded in a game. So Romero and Xhaka were nailed on. And the other player we picked was Ben Davies, who got booked really early on. Xhaka got booked right at the end of the game. Romero didn't play. Gutted. Definitely would have come in. That was 18-1. Would have come in. That was a guaranteed nailed on. So yeah, very close. But we'll go one better this weekend, I'm sure.
I just can't catch a break, can we? Just can't catch a break at all.
We
We're so unlucky so many times this season. So many times.
But on Tuesday night, the Villa-Liverpool game, and my predictions were 1-1, and we were doing that live show in Birmingham during the game.
Oh,
when it was 1-1, I was thinking of you guys, thinking like, you see, I said it, and then...
Yeah.
Well, I went on Sky Sports News in the morning on Tuesday, did their morning show, and I said it would be 2-1 to Liverpool with Villa scoring first.
You said that on the pod. You said that
on this pod as well.
You said Villa would score first. Yeah.
You get nothing for predictions, though.
We've got to clip these bits up where you're right once every 10 weeks.
Well,
Yeah. Right then, let's look at Newcastle against Arsenal. Martin, I'm going to come to you for this because it's your script.
Yes.
Manager of the season. Howe and Arteta candidates. Do you think?
What's their candidates?
You can't give a manager of the season to someone that came in December.
For the turnaround,
I get what you're saying.
He came in at the start of November, so
sorry, I apologise.
Let's get it right. And just for the turnaround, obviously Newcastle were I don't know, I can't remember if they were in the relegation places, but certainly on.
Yes, they were.
They were. Very much were. Okay, there we go. So yeah, the turnaround certainly, obviously, since the turn of the year. I think if the league started in 2022, I think they'd be 6th or 7th. And when you consider the business that they did in January, with the exception of Bruno Guimaraes, was relatively low key, I'd say.
Measured, I would describe
measured,
it as
yeah, considered, which maybe people didn't expect.
No,
he's done a remarkable job, I think, and they're just competing in most games now, and they've got some improvements to make over the summer, which I'm certain they'll do. But yeah, we looked at it. I didn't know how to, because I've got my stats hat on. How are we going to come up with a table of manager of the season contenders? So what I did was I looked at the increase in points per game from the previous season. So for managers that came in midway through the season, I did their points per game, not over the entire season. And Eddie Howe is second.
You did some niche stuff this week.
Oh yeah. I've had some time on my hands.
Yeah, you're on your money.
Yeah. So Eddie Howe's second. He's increased Newcastle's points per game by 0.34. Klopp is actually first from last season. Obviously, he had a tough season last season. Conte had, after last night's result, leapfrogged Arteta, who I think is a viable candidate, just based on the sort of, like I've mentioned many times, the personnel that's been at his disposal. Yeah. I think last night's result, obviously the red card had a massive impact, but they were always due one of those with the sort of team that they've been fielding lately and been forced to field. So yeah, Arteta is 4th, Graham Potter's 5th, and Pep Guardiola's down in 6th, but obviously won the league last season, so that scale is a little bit different. Bruno Lage, who Julian mentioned last week, has had a very good season, 7th, Tuchel 8th, and Vieira 9th. I think those are the sort of 9. It's a big list, but the nine managers that have improved the team's points per game record from the previous season. So I certainly think Howe and Arteta would be in the mix. It will probably go to Guardiola, and you can understand why. Klopp as well would be a contender, but obviously where they're going to fall short, that would be strange to give it to the team that finished second. Almost more strange than to give it to someone like Newcastle or Arsenal, who've clearly punched above their weight. But yeah, I think they've both done phenomenal jobs in different ways. So I think they definitely deserve a mention, even if they're unlikely to sort of come into it.
I always find it a real hard award to try and give in your head, manager of the season, because you could say it's Pep, Man City winning the league, but it's hardly like a surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Also
There has to be some consideration of expectations of the club in question.
Thomas Frank not deserve to be in there? I mean,
Yeah,
Brentford
that's
have comfortably stayed up.
Yeah, Frank would come into the 10, I'm sure, but we couldn't obviously do points per game increase from last season because they smashed it in the Championship last season, so they're going to have a lower points per game this season. But yeah, Frank would.
I think that's who I'd be tempted to give it to, Thomas Frank, probably. Julian, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think Frank and Howe and Arteta have done an amazing job. Again, Arteta, we've said it before, but if he finishes top 4 with Cedric and Nuno Tavares and El Neni and Nketiah, I mean, like, come on. For Eddie Howe, I think Newcastle are the first team to step after not winning any of their first 14 league games or something like that, which is an incredible turnaround. And for all the people who said, "Oh, Steve Bruce, was still great," well, no, he's not a great coach. I know, he's managed.
He's not.
Don't worry about that. Don't you worry about that.
He managed the county team, even in the Midlands. But yeah, I mean, we saw the difference, and even the way they play, because he could have. Eddie Howe could have kept them in a Sam Allardyce kind of style of like, let's not concede and score on a few corners. But the way they've played, what he did with Joel Linton, for example, which is quite crazy when you think that was pretty useless.
Best tactical decision of the season, I think.
That's the base move. And for Thomas Frank, the way they've adapted, even when they were struggling, the way he put them back, I think the signing of Christian Eriksen, which I think Frank was a big part of, helped them massively, but still an amazing achievement to keep Brentford up in that first season ever in the Premier League. So, yeah, one of the three would do nicely, I think.
Julian, what would Newcastle need to add to push for Europe next season? Off the top of my head, goalkeeper, left back, central midfielder, striker. That's at least 4, I would say.
4 easily, and then quantity in your squad as well, because you can only join the big boys if you have competition for places and not just a strong 11, and then after that it's a bit like what Arsenal have right now, pretty much.
Yeah,
you need more depth, especially for the longer term, to establish yourself and every season for the top 6, which you can't do in one transfer window. So I think it will take a bit more time, but yeah, you need to go for as much talent, and I think they will do what they did in January, which is try a million player. Maybe you're done even. They're going to call your agent to say, can you play? Yeah, you never know. And then see the ones that actually, respond in a positive way, like Guimaraes, which I really believe they never thought they could get. Yeah. And somehow, because Lyon opened the door and Bruno opened the door, then he has to be one of the players or one of the signings of the season, even if he came just in January. So, I think it should be a busy summer. And then let's see if they get them as right as they did in January, because that's the other thing. Even if they were a bit underwhelming signings for some of them, they were spot on, to be fair. Trippier, Burn, Target, who you know well, Guimaraes, of course. So there's not much margin for error when you're a club like them with so much money and try to catch up with the bigger boys. So they will have to think carefully and pick the right players.
Do you think that can possibly be as measured again in the summer, Martin?
Well, the early signs are encouraging, aren't they? So I think so. There'll be more temptation to go big, I think, this summer. Because
they were genuinely in trouble, weren't they? So they couldn't probably attract a certain type of player because they would have been worried that they would be playing the Championship in 6 months.
So they've got a bit more freedom this time, and January transfers are just that little bit more risky. You're usually overpriced just because they're mid-season. So it will be interesting. There are 5 players in the sort of top-rated team under Howe that have a markedly lower rating than the rest, and that is, you highlighted them basically, is Dubravka in goal, Fabian Schär. I think they need another centre back. Target isn't one of them. Like if they sign Target, I think it'd be a good signing. Maybe not one to push them onto Europe, but has played well. Shelvey, Fraser, and Wood. So a right winger, striker. Obviously they're linked with Dominic Calvert-Lewin recently. Feel like that might be a bit of a risk, just given his injuries this season, and he has struggled when he's played. But you can see the appeal. He's got a good record against Newcastle as well, so they know what he's capable of. But yeah, the centre basically a spine. Need a goalie, need a centre back, need a centre midfielder, probably need a striker. Yeah. So yeah, if you add those with the players that they've got around it, because I think that Joelinton and Guimaraes, sort of Brazilian duo either side of obviously Shelvey has his moments, but it's not a player you can rely on in every possible sense, really. So yeah, that position I think is particularly crucial.
Be interesting summer ahead for Newcastle, and probably an interesting summer ahead for Arsenal as well. Jesus has been heavily linked with them, Julian. I think I've seen Sterling linked with them a couple of times as well. Jesus feels like someone that would do well for Arsenal. I actually think he's a much better footballer than he gets credit for, because he plays with such good footballers at Manchester City. He probably goes unnoticed how good a player he is technically.
Yeah, you're right, and also the versatility, because he can play wide, he can play as a lone striker, as a second striker. Where I'm a bit skeptical is I don't think he guarantees you 25 goals a season, for example, but maybe that's not why you buy him. Maybe you buy him to, you will still sign a top striker that will hopefully score you 25 or 30 goals a season. And then if you have Gabriel Jesus as another option, as a backup, call it whatever you want, or can play wide as well, and have that option as a starter from the bench, I think he's great, especially if you can get him for decent money, because he obviously has only 1 year left on his contract. So if you can get it for 25, maybe 30 million, I think this is a bargain for a player like him, who's such a good kid, who's still young, who clearly has a lot of ability in terms of pressing and counter-pressing, which I think is what appeals a lot as well to Arteta. I think the talks are going quite well between his agent and the club. Again, I don't think he should be your number one option up front, so it still depends who else you're going to get, but yeah, for a good price, Gabriel Jesus in your squad is a very, very, very added value.
Probably got to leave Manchester City now, hasn't he, Martin, with Haaland coming in?
Yeah, and the reason I like the link personally, I need to be careful what I say here with Julian on the pod. When Lacazette came into the side earlier in the season, they really benefited from his work rate and his intelligent link-up play, and the young players around him really sort of thrived when he came into the team. The issue you have with Lacazette, obviously, in the sort of more recent seasons, is his strike rate is poor, but his work rate is superb, and he is a sort of menace. And if I was to pick out a player who's a younger, better version of Lacazette, Jesus would be up there, just in terms of that work rate. Really good pressing. His numbers, even sort of the similarities in the sort of strike rate, which could be better. But both of them have got good assist numbers this season. Lacazette's got 7. Jesus has 8. He's actually got the most assists for Man City in the Premier League this season, ahead of De Bruyne. Jesus, 8 goals as well, which isn't awful. And he's also got a really, really underrated record in the Champions League. And if Arsenal are in the Champions League next season, since he made his Champions League debut, only 3 players have a better minutes per goal rate than Jesus, and that's Haaland, Lewandowski, and Karim the Dream.
Amazing! I love it.
So Jesus is 4th, ahead of the likes of Messi, of Ronaldo, Mbappe. So his strike rate in Europe is much better than it is in the Premier League. So there'll be that to consider as well. So I really like it as a link. Even his tenacity, they both commit a lot of fouls as well, just because they've got that sort of tenacity about them. So I think they're really similar players. So if they are looking at that blueprint, and they Arteta saw Lacazette and the impact that he had when he came into the side, I think Jesus is a really sort of comparable upgrade.
Let's do our predictions then. I've got a bad feeling for Arsenal. I think they might trip up again. I'm going to go Newcastle 1, Arsenal 1. Julian?
1-0 Arsenal.
I will go. We're saying 2-1 Arsenal.
2-1 to Arsenal. Good game that'll be. Actually, looking forward to that one.
Newcastle will play the last game at St James's Park. You don't play defensive or cautious. You go for it, which I think could play in Arsenal's hands.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah, fair enough. Let's finish the show then with our pick 6 predictions. Martin, how did we go?
Not bad. Well, we had a good start, and then we tailed off. So yeah, I think we got the first 3 right, and then the second 3 wrong. But
we're going to do better this week.
Yeah, 3 out of 6. It's a solid start, but something to build on. So the game, I'll just go through the format again. Obviously, you get 6 games. There's a different market for each game that you have to pick out an outcome for. There's a chance to win £1,000 for the winner. If you get all 6, or even if you get 5 and nobody else gets 6, based on the point system. Obviously, you need a BetVictor account to enter, so you have to be 18 or over. So the 6 games this week will start with Aston Villa against Palace, and it's match result, so home, draw, or away.
It's pretty obvious what we're going to go by here, isn't it? Pretty obvious.
Come on, lovely stuff. What a start. Leeds against
All
Brighton.
agreed.
It was funny. The one game that we all agreed on last week was the first one that went wrong. We said Everton to win. And they drew.
Yeah.
That was the one game we agreed on. So Leeds Brighton is the second game. The market is over or under 2.5 goals. I would say over.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll go with you, too. I would have said under, but I'll go with you.
Watford against Leicester. Match result, home draw or away?
I actually think that's a tougher one to call than you would think.
I would say Leicester. We have got them to score 2 goals in our treble. So
It's Watford that tripped us up. Watford that tripped us up earlier on in the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on then, go Leicester.
West Ham Man City total goals. So 0-1, 2-3, 4-6, 7+. We've got 3 as our prediction.
Yeah, 2 to 6.
4-6, did you say, or 2-3?
Oh no, sorry, 2 to 3. Sorry, is that
2-3? Yeah. Okay, we're agreeing too much this time. Last time there was this chaos.
A 0 for 6 incoming here.
Wolves, Norwich, both teams to score. I'm saying no.
No.
Here we go. Look at this. This is going to land 100%. And Everton against Brentford match result. Home, draw, away.
Draw, I would say.
Draw.
I just don't think it's draw. I don't think. I mean, I say that, but there were draws in midweek. But I always think end of the season is like a preseason tournament. You know, there's never draws because no one cares. Well, apart if you have something to play for. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe draw. Maybe draw this time. I don't know.
Martin, leave it
Also,
to you.
I'm going to throw a cat among the pigeons and say Everton. So what does that sway your voting?
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, Everton to win. I'm happy with that too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've got Villa to win, over 2.5 goals in Leeds, Brighton, Leicester to win, 2 to 3 goals in West Ham, Man City, both teams to score no in Wolves, Norwich, and an Everton win against Brentford. Those are our predictions this week.
That's solid. That is very solid, I feel. Very solid. Yeah.
I like this game, Bet Victor. Keep that up. Keep up the good work, Bet Victor. I really enjoy this game. That does us for this week's podcast. Thanks ever so much for tuning in, and thanks to Martin and Julian for joining me. We'll be back at some point next week. Absolutely no clue what's going on.
Friday. It'll be Friday. There's a few games on Thursday
night. Yeah, I'm at Villa Park Thursday night, and we'll be back then on Friday morning to look back on Thursday and look ahead to the weekend as normal. Enjoy all the football that's on at the weekend. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then make sure you're doing that, please. And yes, stay safe.